All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. If you're joining us today from a time zone that is the afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're coming from. And welcome to the Northwestern's info session on our YouTube channel. Today, we're going to take you through just our general information session and cover a variety of topics. But to start off, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Jackie Marthouse. I'm an assistant director of undergrad admissions here at Northwestern, and I'm also an alum. So I graduated with a communications degree and just recently completed my master's from Northwestern in marketing. I'm a double alum. I was part of that class of 2020 wave that is still waiting for their moment, but it doesn't diminish any of the accomplishments. And I do have a fellow class of 2020 grad here today. So I'm gonna go ahead and let my co-host introduce herself now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and congrats to both of us, Jackie. My name is Elizabeth Bernstein, and I just graduated from Northwestern with a degree in neuroscience from the College of Arts and Sciences. I'm originally from New York City, and while I was at Northwestern, I was also on the pre-med track, so kind of familiar with quite a few different aspects of Northwestern, and I am so excited to be here today talking to y'all and helping to teach you a little bit more about Northwestern and why I love it so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. Like Elizabeth said, we have a lot to kind of cover. We're excited to cover it today. And before I kind of kick off our general info session, I just want to acknowledge that I know there's a lot going on right now. It's been an interesting year to say the least. So I do want to just acknowledge that we totally get, we're all in different situations right now. And we will be keeping that in mind as we review your applications this year. And it's kind of true every year, either way. So I'll go over this later during the application process, but I do want to highlight that if you're interested in learning more about how we're approaching the current pandemic, we do have a COVID-19 website for the Northwestern community. If you're interested in how that's affecting admissions, our director of admission has posted a blog post to highlight a little bit more about our process and just kind of reassure you. And then also just given what this past month or so has kind of revealed and continues to reveal about our racial injustices in our society, we do have another blog post from our director of admissions on our admissions blog post site that also, again, kind of reassures you and lets you know how the Northwestern community is reacting to that. And that's something that I think you should care to look into for every school you're looking at, not just Northwestern, because it does give you a good overview of how a community might react in future instances of various different problems or issues that we all face. So you do want to just consider that as your college search continues. So with that, I do want to start off just kind of introducing you to Northwestern. I see in the chat, you guys are dropping where you're coming from, which is really cool. At Northwestern, we have students coming from all 50 states and over 80 different countries. I think it's more now, honestly. I think it's up to 90, which is really cool. And so just like in this chat, you're all coming from different places. That's what's happening here on campus. So it's a really interesting and cool place to be a part of, because not only is that geographically diverse, but there are also different backgrounds across ethnic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, socioeconomic backgrounds, religious backgrounds, and different academic interests. So you have a lot of different people coming to campus, and that lends itself to a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different voices, and a really great way for you to round out your education and continue to learn more from people who are different than you. And so that will start in the classroom. So what I'll end up going over today is that academic offerings. We'll touch on our culture and community, and then I'll do the financial aid and application process. But to start, I do want to jump right into academics, because that's kind of at the forefront of your mind usually when you're looking at college. And it is something that we really value at Northwestern, obviously. And the way we approach it, I think, is really unique. So at Northwestern, we actually approach academics with this flexible, interdisciplinary mindset. So we have 3 different types of classes you end up taking as a Northwestern student. You have your major, which is what you end up studying. In the beginning, I said I'm a communications major. That's what you would actually take classes in. But you will also take classes in electives, which are just classes that are fun for you. And then you'll take required coursework. What's unique about our program, and again, hinges on that flexibility, is that we have our students actually choose their required coursework. So you're choosing your major, you're choosing those electives, and you're also choosing what you actually are required to take. And the way we do that is we actually bucket our requirements and have a whole list of classes that apply to that requirement. Elizabeth's actually in the College of Arts and Sciences, so I'll use that as an example. They call them distribution requirements. Distribution requirements are 6 areas of study or 6 themes, and you apply 2 courses each to those themes for a total of 12 required courses. But you're choosing from a list of like 30, 40 classes to pick 2 from. And so there are variety. The buckets are very vague sounding. They're like fine arts, ethics and values, pretty easy for you to find a variety of classes that fit that theme and make your choice in what you're interested in to study, even in required coursework. And so that's how you literally approach your classes. This is across a 6-school model. So at Northwestern, we have 6 undergraduate schools actually. And so I just called out one, that College of Arts and Sciences, but there are 6 in total. So the other 5 would be that School of Music, the School of Education and Social Policy, the School of Engineering, the School of Communication, and the School of Journalism. And so those are our 6 undergraduate schools. And while there are 6 and they're different and you do have to apply to just one, you can take classes in all of them. You can move around, you can switch, you can play Northwestern bingo and try and get all 6 classes on your transcript by the time you're done. So it's really up to you how you interact with our 6-school model, but I want to highlight that that flexibility is naturally built into how we have you schedule your courses and also the opportunities you have across our 6 schools. And so this idea of flexibility is a little bit more broad, a little bit more high level of how we approach academics. But Elizabeth, as our recent grad, can definitely speak more to how you navigate that and what that looks like on a student level.
Yeah, definitely. Northwestern's flexibility is something that I have totally loved during the past 4 years. Both of the concentrations that I studied, so my major in neuroscience, my minor in psychology, were housed within the College of Arts and Sciences. But even still, I was actually able to take classes in 5 of the 6 undergraduate schools at Northwestern. So last fall, I took a class in the neuroscience department called the Neuroscience of Clocks and Sleep, which was a little bit of a snoozer, but just an example of how even within the major classes that you're taking, things can be so exciting and you can be taking really interesting classes. For those distribution requirements that Jackie was talking about, I actually took a class called The History of Rock in the Beanon School of Music to fulfill one of the literature and fine arts distribution requirements. I have friends who want to avoid math like the plague, but for me, math was not the thing I wanted to avoid. It was actually one of those really hardcore English classes. So I actually took that really fun music class instead. And that was a really great example. And for me, a really awesome way to be able to fill that requirement with something that was so much more interesting to me. I also took classes in the School of Engineering. I took an intro to computer programming class as part of my neuroscience major. And then never took another class within that school, but still had the exciting opportunity. And then for that third bucket that Jackie was talking about, I also have taken elective classes in other schools that had absolutely no requirement attached to them. I took a class on different speech disorders and pathologies. I say as I stumble my words, but that was a really great class in the School of Communications that I took just because I was interested in it. But other than taking classes across different schools, students can also major across different colleges. So my friend Maddie is a neuroscience major as well in the College of Arts and Sciences, but she's also a theater major in the School of Communications. So most days on campus, she goes from her neuroscience lab that studies schizophrenia to one of the many student productions that we have here. But stories like my story of someone who is now an alum of the university, may be getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because all of you are just thinking about the beginning of Northwestern and thinking about applying. So let's start out with kind of the beginning of your journey. So some of you, I'm sure, know exactly what you want to study. So my friend Ross came to Northwestern 100% sure that he wanted to study economics. He joined a couple of different student organizations in that same vein. So like a student organization called Tamid that gave its members real consulting projects to work on. 4 years later, he just graduated with his degree in economics and a job in investment banking. But I'm sure for many of you, the prospect of knowing exactly what you want to do can be a little bit scary to think about. And that is also totally okay. My friend Sarah came in thinking that she might want to study something in STEM, and she started off as a math major in the College of Arts and Sciences. She then, though, joined a student organization called A&O Productions, which brought different speakers, concerts, and movie screenings to campus. And being a part of that organization, she realized that she really enjoyed the graphics and coding element of it more than the math she had been doing in her classes. During her second year at Northwestern, she actually switched into the McCormick School of Engineering and became a computer science major. And even though she made this switch during her second year, she still just graduated on time, largely thanks to the flexibility of the quarter system and also all of the different faculty and advisors that helped her through that transition. Northwestern has a 6-to-1 faculty to student ratio, so forming close connections with professors in the classroom is incredibly feasible. About 80% of Northwestern classes have less than 20 students, and only 3% are over 100. And additionally, all professors are required to hold office hours no matter the size of the class. So once again, forming these connections is super easy. I got really close with my biochemistry professor, Dr. Mead, even though biochemistry is one of the larger classes that we have here. And a couple of years later, I've kept in touch with him, really kept up that relationship. And he actually just wrote one of my recommendation letters for a program that I was applying to. Professors like Dr. Mead and others for students like Sarah are so valuable and essential to students as they help us to navigate Northwestern's academic structure, like the quarter system, which Jackie will talk a little bit more about.
Yes, so if you have heard of the quarter system, go ahead and let us know in the chat, just a little thumbs up, you know what it is. But if you haven't, I'm happy to quickly explain it to you just because it's very important to this whole idea of flexibility and moving around that Elizabeth and I have covered in your academic career. So you might have been on a semester system currently, or maybe your school does quarters within a semester. We actually take quarter system to apply to the entire year. So from January to December, you actually divide it into 4, and 3 of those quarters are your academic term. That 4th quarter is actually your summer term. So you'll be in classes fall, winter, and spring quarters. And then summer quarter is your time to do what you want. Maybe you want to go home. Maybe you want to get a job, an internship. Maybe you want to do some research or do a shorter study abroad program. That summer's for you. Some students also take classes, but it's not required to finish out your 4 years here to do summer classes. And so when you're taking classes at fall, winter, spring quarters, you're actually going to end up taking more classes than a semester student. They'll move a little bit quicker, but that's okay because that means you just have more opportunities to try new things or learn something different. If you look at a semester student, they usually take about 5 classes a semester. Over a year, that's 10 classes because there's 2 semesters. A quarter system student takes about 4 classes a quarter. And if there are 3 quarters, that's 12 classes in a year. So you're looking at a natural system of building in 8 extra classes, if not more, for you to try something different. Like I said, maybe add a major or minor, or really do a deep dive in what interests you. While we're on the topic of majors and minors, I do just want to also highlight how many we have to offer. So if you're looking at a certain major already, potentially, there are over like 200 programs to study, and that includes minors and certificates at Northwestern. So whether you know what you want to do or not, that just shows that there's a great breadth for what you can explore. A minor is just a subset of a major, so that's the difference. Some students will combine, some students will double major, or some students will just have a major, like I said, and just take that deep dive in classes. A certificate is a little different, and so I want to spend some time on that because you might not have heard of that, and I hadn't until I came to Northwestern, but it's something that I ended up actually pursuing. So a certificate program is a little bit more of a specialized niche program. It is only about 5 classes, but it's a little bit more practical than the other coursework you might see. It's a little bit more hands-on. So they're typically in fields like design, or I did a marketing certificate. There's a Kellogg business certificate. Again, a little bit more practical because they're usually focused on learning hands-on applications of these fields. And typically the faculty that are attached to these certificates are amazing. They're from the field themselves. They have years of experience doing what they're covering. And it's great to learn from professionals who are coming directly from these fields. And so those are all the different ways that you can obviously take classes, explore what you're interested in, and combine it. But you can also learn beyond the classroom too. And so when you're looking at potentially doing something like research, or maybe you're interested in being innovative, those are all ways for you to continue learning outside of the classroom. Innovation is huge on campus. It's something that I think anyone can be a part of, but if you particularly have that entrepreneurial spirit, you really like forward thinking, we have several centers on campus for you to get started on that and jump on in. So starting with our garage, which is literally called The Garage, and we have a great YouTube session all about it in the garage, so check that out later. That is a space on campus that highlights entrepreneurship and forward thinking with a startup culture, but also just being a member gives you access to so many ways to think about being entrepreneurial across disciplines. So it's literally in a garage. It's reworked to look super cool, kind of like a Google worker space. I've been in it before. They've got a nice coffee lab on the side, all these bean bags, flexible seating, this great whiteboard and glass whiteboard so you can write ideas as you're thinking of it. And it's a really great space to come together and be that kind of forward thinking person. But I also like to highlight other spaces beyond just that. We also have the nightlife on campus, and that's a collaboration between our School of Engineering and our School of Journalism, kind of those two fields coming together, but you don't have to be in either of those schools to be a part of the Night Lab. It's spelled with a K if you want to look it up, Night Lab. And that lab on campus is actually all about thinking of how media and technology can come together to promote new and exciting things. So they work in artificial technology, they work with AI, virtual reality, augmented reality. It's a space for you to look beyond maybe just that typical startup culture and see other ways you can be innovative. I also like to think research is innovative. And so I mentioned in the beginning, that's another way to learn more about campus. It's something some students spend their summer doing. And so I want to go ahead and let Elizabeth talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, research is something that I have definitely spent a good chunk of time doing while I've been at Northwestern, as have many of my peers. Northwestern allocates about $3.5 million annually for undergraduate research. So that's money not going to professors, graduate students, or anyone else other than students like, I guess, formerly myself. One of the ways that this plays out is through undergraduate research grants. And so we have a very comprehensive and very, very helpful Office of Undergraduate Research. So students can come with their idea with faculty sponsorship and faculty support on that idea and apply for a monetary grant from Northwestern. When I first went in with my first draft of my grant, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And the person I was working with at their office totally marked it up in red pen. And I thought, this is a disaster. I'm never going to get my research grant funded. But they were so incredibly helpful in getting me to rewrite that proposal and really understand how to effectively communicate my ideas for the research I wanted to do to faculty across a really wide range of disciplines. And ultimately, I did get a research grant after my second year at Northwestern. I did clinical research on orthopedic surgical outcomes in patients with different hereditary connective tissue disorders. It was a really exciting opportunity to spend that 8-week dedicated period to something that I had been interested in outside of the classroom. So something of clinical outcomes and really wanting to make a difference in how people fare in the healthcare system, but also learning about connective tissue, which I had seen in my cell bio textbooks. But something really, really important to emphasize about research at Northwestern is that it is not just STEM focused. You can do research on truly anything that you are interested in. So my friend Emily, who also just graduated with me, did her thesis for the School of Education and Social Policy. She was a social policy major on how the different religious affiliation of different universities across the country influences the lives and lived experiences of queer students at those schools. So this is something that she got a tremendous amount of university support to do, and something that she was really interested in and had the opportunity to spend over a year pursuing this project and getting to interview folks and really just find out more and connect with folks about their experiences. In addition to research, I also have a lot of friends even doing research grants virtually this summer, like my friend Nathan. The Office of Fellowships will also help to work with students to apply for and receive various awards, like my friend Daniel, who got a Fulbright Award to teach English in Malaysia. He got cut short a little bit by COVID, but nonetheless, he was a really great example of how research can take you around the world. My friend Ashlyn had the opportunity to actually study abroad twice during her time at Northwestern, which may seem a little bit unheard of in the current global travel day and age, but I'm sure we will return to that point sometime soon. She studied Spanish language and culture in Barcelona, and she also did research in Havana, Cuba on their healthcare system. She did a homestay while she was in Cuba, and the research she did was actually specific to voodoo. I also had friends, knowing that there is a question in the chat about engineering and study abroad. I had a friend named Kelly who was actually also a senior counselor. She was a biomedical engineering major, and she went on a biomedical engineering study abroad program the winter quarter of her junior year to South Africa, where she actually looked at a lot of their engineering infrastructure there. So I definitely have a lot of friends who are in the McCormick School of Engineering and have still had the opportunity to study abroad. So truly, whatever academic path you're on, however many interests you have, there are so many ways to make study abroad work for you. And also, going back to the quarter system helps to make that so possible, because even if you do have a lot of classes and a lot of different requirements, being able to study abroad and just miss one quarter out of 12 is so feasible and allows you to do what you want without making a huge impact on your plans and your graduation. Kelly also actually graduated a quarter early, so she's a great example of really how many things you can do at Northwestern. But going back to what I was talking about a third of Northwestern students take classes at a university abroad, and students don't have to worry about financial circumstances when studying abroad, which is something absolutely phenomenal at Northwestern, is that whatever financial aid you would be receiving in Evanston or online for virtual classes would travel with you around the world wherever you go, so that financial circumstances really never need to impede your ability to get a global experience. Like I was talking about with Kelly, and also actually my friend Ashlyn earlier, both brought those credits back from their study abroad experiences and applied those to graduating definitely on time, and in both cases actually early. There are a lot of traditional study abroad opportunities, but also there are different student organizations that will go abroad, like Thunk Acapella, which teaches music lessons in also South Africa every other year. But they're just a great example of really taking your passion and getting a global experience outside of the traditional study abroad program. There are also friends of mine who have interned abroad, but most of the time that happens a little bit closer to home. About 70% of Northwestern students will have an internship by the time that they graduate. One of the reasons that the number of students with internships is so high is because of something we have at Northwestern called SIGP, also known as the Summer Internship Grant Program. So students pursuing internships in traditionally unpaid fields can actually apply for this grant that helps offset housing, travel, all sorts of just general living expenses for students. And similar to study abroad, this is just another really great way that Northwestern helps to make opportunities like unpaid internships, which can obviously be very difficult for students who don't come from a background to be able to have that opportunity, to make that something possible for all students at Northwestern. Additionally, internships at Northwestern are also often built into the curriculum. So there's a program in the Medill School of Journalism called the Journalism Residency. And with that program, students will go and do an internship for credit for a quarter. Students go to all sorts of places. I had a friend who was a diehard baseball fan, and he actually got to intern at ESPN. But I also had a friend, Nicole, who interned at the Chicago Tribune, and just yesterday published another article about the impacts. One of her first articles was about the impacts of climate change on the Chicagoland area, and she just published another article yesterday about the impacts of COVID on mental health resources and access for folks in the Chicagoland area. For all of the internships I've talked about, Northwestern Career Advancement is so helpful to students, whether that's resume review, mock interviews, all sorts of career prep. They continue to be helpful to me even after graduation with some interviews that I've had recently. And overall, I truly just can say that they care so much about student success and are so willing to go above and beyond to do what it is that students need to be successful. And all of the opportunities that I've touched on, these awesome internships at so many different cool places from Google to Microsoft to the American Civil Liberties Union, really set students up for success as they graduate like myself and join our world-class alumni network.
Yeah, and so when Elizabeth says world class, I think it truly is. We have alum that are across the world in every single field you can think of, and some you might have heard of before, which is really exciting. I'll just name the one that I often think of the most, especially during quarantine. What else are you going to do? Watch TV, right? So Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin went to Northwestern. So if you've read the books or if you've watched the show, definitely take note of that we have alum like that across every field. That's just one instance that's in Medill, but literally there's JJ Adonde if you are interested in sports. There's Seth Meyers from Late Night TV. We've got Ginny Rometty if you're interested in boss women who are CEOs of IBM. So really it runs the gamut of like what we have in terms of alum, but we also have alum in every field that are a little bit more recent or a couple years out that are there to connect with you, connect with people like Elizabeth who've recently graduated and are excited to tell them about job opportunities. And then even people like me later down the line, if I'm ever looking for another job opportunity, I know alum are going to be open and excited to talk to me. And they're also just excited to give back in general. So we have alum volunteer all the time on campus or come back for big events like homecoming. If you wear something Northwestern out in public, you're probably going to hear someone say, "Go Cats." There's just a lot of great pride and energy in our alum network and in our student body in general. And so when you're thinking of that kind of energy, I think that's a good segue into us talking about our community here on campus, because that's another big part of your college experience. So we've covered a lot of the ways we'll prep you for life beyond Northwestern and also every opportunity you have academically. But there's also a lot to be said about our community and the culture here once you're on campus. So I'll go ahead and let Elizabeth cover that piece.
Yes, happily. I definitely love Northwestern's culture and community. It has been such an impactful thing on me throughout the last 4 years, and my Northwestern experience truly would not have been the same otherwise. I think what makes Northwestern students so special and makes for such a vibrant student body and community overall is that Northwestern students are so passionate about what they're interested in, but they're interested in so many different things. I have been to countless a cappella performances to support friends. I have been to Bhangra dance competitions. I have been to robotics competitions. And so really students love what they do, but they do it in so many areas, and that makes students just so excited to be part of this awesome community. But forming the sense of community begins with your home on campus. So we have a whole section on residential life on our YouTube page, so feel free to check that out for more details on this. But all students will live on campus for their first 2 years, and I found it a really great community forming opportunity. So my residential hall had something called Hot Chocolate Wednesdays that was very, very popular with the love of free food by college students. And so students would gather around constantly on Wednesdays in our residential hall. And it was really just a great way to know that you were supported in that community you were living in. Community also begins on day one with Wildcat Welcome. So all students are grouped into 10 to 15 person peer advisor groups and led by an upperclassman student of similar interest. Throughout that week, you'll get acclimated to not only where buildings are on campus, but how to register for classes. What is Norbucks? It is the Starbucks in our Norris University Center, and all of the little things like that to help you really be successful at Northwestern. Students also have a wide range of significant spaces to utilize at their disposal. So that can be the Shill Catholic Center, Hillel, the Women's House, the Black House, really just so many opportunities for those significant spaces, whether that's something that's a really strong part of your identity you want to continue, or something that you've always been curious to explore. The Purple Pride that we have during Wildcat Welcome carries genuinely throughout all 4 years on campus. One of my favorite traditions is Dillo Day, and even this year with my last Dillo Day being virtual, Northwestern still found a way to really bring together Northwestern student body as a super tight-knit community. It's actually run by a student organization called Mayfest Productions, and it's one of our over 500 student organizations here on campus. And so 500 student organizations is quite a lot of student organizations and quite a few offerings for students to choose from. We have student organizations that range truly in all type of interest and activity. So for STEM focused students, we have the Society of Women's Engineers. I know there was a question in the chat about Greek life. So we do indeed have Greek life on campus. About 30% of the community is involved. And I think that for students who choose to participate, like I did over the last 4 years, it was a really great formative community and an awesome place to make friends, but was by no means a defining part of my Northwestern experience, and definitely not something I dedicated all of my time to. So I think overall it does not dominate social life. And I think I spent far more time outside of Greek life than I actually spent inside of it. I spent a lot of time going to some of the many comedy performances that we have on campus, which are truly so funny. Different shows like Titanic, improv, a lot of awesome opportunities for students to get involved. We also have club, intramural, and obviously our Division I Big Ten sports teams. When I was a first year student, Northwestern football was actually in the Pinstripe Bowl, which is held at Yankee Stadium. And being a native New Yorker, I actually got free tickets from Northwestern to go to that and cheer on the Cats, which was a really exciting opportunity, but also a lot of ways to just have fun, hang out, and play sports on a much more chill level with people than playing at Yankee Stadium, though obviously quite a cool feat. My favorite student organization is something I've been involved with for the past 4 years and I have led over the past year, called Camp Kesem. For me, it's a place that I feel like has really defined my sense of home and my sense of community at Northwestern. And like I was saying earlier, I think what's so great is that every student at Northwestern has that one or those couple student organizations that really feel that sense of home and feel like the right student organization for them. So even if it doesn't happen your first quarter or your first semester, wherever you go, I promise you will find the right fit for you. It actually took me a little bit till I really got deep involved in Camp Kesem, but ultimately it has been such a great organization and has also been awesome because it's connected me with the local Chicago and Evanston communities.
So on that note, I just want to take a brief moment to just highlight that those communities, Evanston and Chicago, are going to be a part of your time at Northwestern. And so like Elizabeth said, she's been able to use her student org involvement to engage with those communities, but you're also literally located at Evanston. So as a normal everyday student, you're just gonna be walking around Evanston. There's a lot offered there. There's all these dining spots, a ton of coffee shops to study in, and just so much to engage with in that community. And then you also have Chicago right at your fingertips. So if you're interested in being on a campus that's compact and then you're in a suburb, but then you also have access to a major city, we hit all three marks. And so with access to Chicago, I also want to highlight that our students do go to Chicago. They do engage with the city. They use either our shuttle system to get downtown, and that shuttle goes from our campus to our graduate campus, which is located in the heart of the city of Chicago, right by Michigan Ave and the Bean, those little bit more touristy spots. And then we also are right along the purple line of our L, or elevated train system, which can take you anywhere in the city once you hop on that line. And so those are two routes to get into the city, and our students use that for fun, for class. As student groups, there's just a lot of reasons to go into the city and engage with it. And then it's great because then you have a space to come back to at the end of the day. And so with that, just so I can make sure I have time to answer your questions, I also want to take just a couple minutes to go over our admissions process and financial aid. So transitioning a little bit to the more nitty gritty stuff, with our admissions process here, at the beginning, I mentioned that we practice holistic admissions. I want to just emphasize that and explain that a little bit more. At Northwestern, we look at every piece of your application when you apply. So we care about every single piece, every kind of facet of your background, and we put that all together to form your application and review it. When you are actually literally applying, you'll apply through the Common App or the Coalition app. Both are online platforms. They usually launch in August. So you'll see us on those platforms with our updated applications by then. And in those applications, they'll ask for your academic background, the activities you've been involved in, for you to answer essays, and for you to submit information about yourself and recommendation letters. So when we are looking at that application, we look at every single one of those sections. So I just want to go through each one so you understand what we're looking for as we go through them. With academics, we're going to be looking at your transcripts and your test scores. Transcripts are going to be from your high school. So what classes have you been taking? How did you perform in those classes? And how did you challenge yourself within the context of your high school? This is where holistic admissions really comes into play, because we consider all of that information, especially in times of a global pandemic. We all know your school year was disrupted last year. Our work lives were disrupted, so I'm on the same page. And that's going to probably impact either your performance or how things are reported, or even how your schedule might look next year. And that's okay. We're going to know that. We're going to review it. You'll have a space to talk about it if you want to, but so will your counselor. And we're going to consider that as we look at your transcript and what happened in this past kind of year and moving forward into this next year. So what we really just value is that you are taking advantage of what you can and doing what you can, but also staying well. So I just want you to remember that at the end of the day, your health and your mental health are just as important. So don't feel like you have to pack on extra classes this next year because this last semester didn't work out. We would much rather value you taking appropriate amount of classes and doing as well as you can. As far as test scores go, typically I would say it's a factor, but this upcoming school year, if you are applying to admissions in the 2020-2021 cycle, we are test optional. So you do not have to submit scores. If you have previously submitted scores and you don't want us to use them, there will be a place for you to say that. If you end up taking tests and you do want to submit your scores, that's fine. But at the end of the day, we are test optional. So it is purely an option for you to choose to upload them. If you do not upload them, they will not be a factor. If you would like us to review your application, they'll just be an additional factor with your application. The next section is activities. So activities is what you've just been involved in. Again, this could be affected by the pandemic. It probably was. So it's okay if this last semester you couldn't have your group meetings or you couldn't volunteer as much as you could have before. We're going to understand that. I just want to see what you've been doing all 4 years. So what have you been up to over the past couple years? What's something that you're interested in? Highlight leadership positions or awards or recognition, or kind of maybe even how you adjusted during the pandemic. Those are all great ways to use that section to your benefit. And then the next part were essays. So essays are the one on your application and also the one on our supplement. So we do have an extra supplemental piece to our application, like most schools on the Common App or Coalition app. And that supplement is just going to ask 3 major things. 1, what school are you applying to? So one of our 6 schools. 2, what major? You do not have to pick a major. You do have to pick a school, but major can be undecided, perfectly fine. And then you will be asked why Northwestern. It's a little bit lengthier question than that, but it's asking kind of what interests you about Northwestern and why are you seeing yourself here at Northwestern? How can you contribute to the community? And also how can we contribute to you? So when you're answering that question and your essay, just typical, check your grammar, check your spelling, all of that. Make sure you have a main point. For your main essay, there's really no right way to answer it. Just use it how you want to, whatever your authentic, genuine tone is in writing, do it there. And then your Why Northwestern essay is a space to be specific. So hopefully you watched a couple of these YouTube sessions or you're about to, jot some notes down, check out our website, check out our virtual tour. If we're able to open for visits, come and visit. Otherwise, connect with us in any way you can to just learn more about us and fill out that essay. And then finally, recommendation letters. We only require 2, one from a core subject teacher and one from a counselor. If you want to add more, that's fine. I just want to stress that quality over quantity is key with those letters. We do not need a ton of them for them to all say how great you are. You don't want to diminish that from one really strong recommendation letter. And you also don't want to accidentally add recommendation letters that aren't as strong. Maybe you ask kind of every teacher you've ever had, and one teacher says positive things but aren't really digging into who you are, versus another teacher is very strong. We'd rather only see that one rec than a slew of them with varying degrees of relevance. And so that's the application. You can apply 2 ways, early decision or regular decision. Early decision is our binding round. So if you love Northwestern, my colleague likes to say, maybe you already set your ringtone to the fight song. This is the space for you. Apply early decision, because if you're admitted, you will be enrolling in the next year and have to withdraw all other applications. That's due November 1st. If you're more non-committal, want to weigh your options, that's fine. That's due January 2nd. So with that, that's the application. And sorry, it's saying I'm muted. I hope I'm not. And so, okay, good. All right, so well, that's the application. So we've gone over the 2 deadlines, and then the next space is financial aid. And so financial aid is separate for a reason. With financial aid, we have need-based financial aid. So that means it's based on your need with the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Our domestic students, we are need blind. Our international students, we are need aware. So it is a factor in your application. Need blind means it is not a factor in your application. Regardless of which bucket you fall in, we meet your need 100%. And once we get that information gathered about your financial background, we put together that number that you can contribute to your education, you and your family. We take our total cost of attendance minus that financial contribution to be your financial aid package. That package will be 100% loan free, and it'll be 100% of that difference. So again, I'm going to say it's loan free. You don't have to pay it back. It's money that is just given to you for your education, for you to fully attend Northwestern. And it's based again on your need and those forms. So if you want to get an idea of what your financial aid might be, our financial aid website is really useful in that. We also have a calculator online. Every school that offers financial aid will have one of these calculators. I encourage you to check out every single one. They're going to vary, unfortunately and fortunately. So it's really important to check those out early. So if you're thinking about programs like early decision, or you're weighing your options to apply to different schools, it's something to be aware of ahead of time. And so that is my not so quick overview of admissions and financial aid. And so now we're going to go ahead and answer some of your questions. So if you think of more, please drop them in the chat. But I'm going to review. Oh, Elizabeth, this is a good one since you just graduated. So this student says that their sibling goes to another school in the quarter system, and that can make it difficult to fully understand the material since it's taught so quickly. Do you feel like that's true at Northwestern?
Yeah, I definitely have not felt that way in my time about things being taught too quickly because of the quarter system. Because of the quarter system, I have actually found things to be easier for final exams and such. So we love parents. So with the classes, for example, when I was taking organic chemistry, instead of having a final exam on 15 weeks worth of material like I would have at a semester-based institution, I actually would have had about 10 weeks of material on that. And that was really, really helpful that in the middle of May, I didn't need to know what was being taught to me way back in January. So definitely have not found things to be taught too quickly. And I've actually found it to be definitely an adjustment to know the quarter system and know how to work with it. But something that I really liked doing was balancing classes that had tests as their assessments and papers. So usually doing 2 and 2 has been really helpful for me in terms of kind of having a more balanced workload overall.
Awesome. Thank you, Elizabeth. I have another question here that I'll just answer quickly. It's asking how easy is it to navigate around campus? It's literally just like a mile long campus, end to end, 20, 25 minutes, depending on how quickly you walk. And it's only half a mile wide. We're right on the lake too. So you've got a beautiful lakefront you can walk by if you want to take the leisurely route, or you can cut through like campus paths. So super easy to just walk around, or bike. Some students have bikes, some students rollerblade, skateboard. But most students do just kind of choose to walk because it's such a small campus and very accessible across. Okay, so another question would be, Elizabeth, how would you describe Northwestern students?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of like what I was saying earlier with culture and community, the way that I would best describe Northwestern students is passionate and engaged. I think that there's no one typical Northwestern student, and that's why it makes it so exciting to have that many people in our student body. But at the same time, we kind of share common values almost of really appreciating community, really wanting to help each other, being overall collaborative, and also just on the whole excited about what we do and excited to cheer each other on in the things that other people do as well.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. So thank you, Elizabeth. Another question, I kind of want to combine two of these. So there's one, like, what are the business opportunities on campus, and what are like law opportunities if you're interested in pursuing law. As far as kind of business goes, I would say that we do have a graduate school of business. It's called Kellogg. I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about certificates. And so we do have 2 undergraduate Kellogg certificates you can pursue as an undergraduate. So that's connected directly to Kellogg. Other opportunities include the Kellogg's hub is on campus, so you can go there and see the building. Our economics department is housed in the building. So there's connections. Sometimes the professors therefore overlap. And so those are ways for you to get a little bit of business pursuits in through Kellogg specifically. But at Northwestern, things like business, law, and pre-med are all considered pre-professional tracks. So each of those have their own ways for you to navigate and go on those tracks without having to necessarily major in them. So we actually don't have a business undergrad degree. We think that it's more valuable for you to have a true kind of liberal arts background, be a problem solver, and all of our programs will help you for that, along with those certificates and different minors. Pre-law, again, same kind of concept. It's really about being a strong writer, but we do have a legal studies major and minor if you're interested in that. And we do have pre-law advisors and different student groups to help you figure out more about that. Same with business. And then pre-med has a whole office dedicated to that, the undergraduate pre-health advising system. So it includes pre-med, pre-vet, pre-PT, all of that. And they're a great resource for students on campus. But again, no matter which route you fall in, you don't have to have a set major to be in those tracks. Cool. So then a more fun question, Elizabeth, how does school spirit look like, and are sports important to campus life? They even included a Go Cats. So Elizabeth, you can take that.
Yes, we definitely love a good Go Cats. I think that having Division I Big Ten sports is something that I loved about Northwestern when I was applying, was the opportunity to have that big football environment and go to tailgates outside of the stadium and really just show Northwestern school spirit, especially when we were in March Madness for the first time in so many years, and broke what was formerly known as a curse that we had on us. So there were definitely a lot of different really exciting times to be a Wildcat fan while I was at Northwestern. But on the flip side of that, something that I loved about it was that I didn't feel like my world was going to come crashing down if I missed one single sports game. And obviously there are people for whom that might be the case. But I love the Cats and had a lot of fun cheering them on. And I think it is a really great kind of aspect of overall social life at Northwestern, of on a weeknight going up to one of the basketball games with our free shuttles, or going to cheer on the amazing women's lacrosse team. There are so many really fun opportunities to cheer on the Cats and have that be a really big part of your Northwestern experience.
Great, thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, so another question I see, I'm trying to balance like the more logistical ones with the fun ones for Elizabeth. I didn't answer this when I went over admission stuff. So do students have to take AP or IB courses in high school to be considered for admission? No. So if your school doesn't offer AP or IBs, first off, I don't expect you to figure out a way to do that. If your school limits them or they only offer like 1 or 2, again, it's not like expected for you to have gone out of your way given their limitations. Now, if your school offers a ton, it doesn't have to be one or the other. I would just encourage you to take challenging classes like AP or IB if there are a ton and it makes sense for your schedule, because it will help you be ready for any college experience. College is kind of the next level, right? So AP or IBs will prepare you for that. Same with honors courses. So if there's a ton offered and you can't fit it in your schedule, obviously I would recommend you do that. But if it's not offered, don't feel like you have to figure out a way to make it happen. Not at all. Again, context is key. We do pay attention to what your school offers and how you take advantage of that. Elizabeth, I know you talked about kind of different ways you got help with research, but are there any other notable mentorship opportunities you might want to highlight for undergraduates?
For research specifically?
It was more like just in general, so up to you.
Yes, totally. So for I'll start with research actually. So there are basically like research peer advisors of a sort. I was actually chosen to be one. And so that was the summer after I got an undergraduate research grant, then serving as just kind of a touch point for a small group of students who got one the next summer to say, here's what worked for me. I mean, a lot of challenges come up with independent research. And for a lot of students, that's not something that they have navigated before. So, what happens when all of a sudden your primary investigator goes on vacation for a week and you don't know what to do with your experiment next, or your results are totally different and there are so many things that happen? So, that was a great mentorship opportunity. And there are also a lot of different academic mentorship opportunities. So there are peer-led study groups, peer-led tutoring, and those are great ways not only to be the recipient of help if you're struggling in a class, but also then to pass down the knowledge that you've learned onto other students. When I was a first year student, general chemistry was very difficult for me, and I was in a peer-led study group that entire year. And it helped so much to know, one, wow, I'm not the only person who has no idea what just happened with this topic or how to approach solving this problem. And also, two, just really helped me to understand how to look at a problem and how to address it. But otherwise, I think a lot of the leadership and mentorship opportunities at Northwestern come from the over 500 student organizations that we have. I know that's how I've formed a lot of the really close mentorship relationships I have, both being the mentor and being the mentee. So I was actually in the pre-med fraternity Phi Delta Epsilon for a few years during my time at Northwestern. And that was a great way to connect with students and other students and receive mentorship on pre-med opportunities and struggles specifically. But overall, I just think getting involved in the student body exposes you to students you wouldn't have otherwise met. I mean, as a pre-med student, I would have never met a voice major and been in, but I have quite a few friends that are. And just being able to form those different connections with students, both older and younger than you, is just a really awesome opportunity and kind of a great byproduct of a lot of those student organizations.
For sure. Great. So I have a question here that a lot of these end up being like specific to programs, but can we talk more about Northwestern's education program? I think you mean like secondary education, which is within our School of Education and Social Policy. So I just want to take a moment to highlight that's one of our 6 schools again. And the education program, it helps you get that secondary teacher licensing. So part of it is a built-in internship, like Elizabeth talked about earlier, to be a teacher assistant. And then you would get licensed at the end of your 4 years and pursue a separate major in whatever you're interested in teaching. But there are other ways to get involved in education across no matter what kind of major you're in. I work in education and I was a communications major, but the School of Education Social Policy has a lot of resources because they already build in an internship, and their whole premise is kind of helping people on different levels, whether it's on a business level or that one-on-one kind of classroom teacher environment. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes. So I would say there's a couple questions kind of about what types of students are in different schools, whether it's students who identify as Latinx, or maybe you're even thinking of how many students are female in the School of Engineering or female identifying. These different statistics are better to go directly to the School of Engineering, but I will say, at least for female identifying, I do know it's around like 34% now of students in that program. And it is an initiative they're trying to work on, as well as across our 6 schools. We are constantly seeking to lift and include different voices in different programs, so that it is something that we keep mind of and consider as we're building out these programs, specifically in computer science. I know this is a big initiative to build out that program and make sure it's inclusive. So I want you to know that those initiatives are across campus, and there's something that we continue to work on because nobody's perfect at this yet. And so it's something that we are thinking of course. And I'm sorry, I can't give you exact percentages right now, but I do encourage you to check out the School of Engineering website for those things. And any other school, honestly, it's a good question across our 6 schools. Okay, so I want to make sure we have time to answer like the best question in my opinion, which is I would love to hear, Elizabeth, kind of why you chose Northwestern. And then we'll close on like our favorite thing about Northwestern. So if you could just start with why you chose Northwestern.
So when I was applying to colleges, I actually applied early decision to Northwestern, which really tells you how much I loved Northwestern and how I knew Northwestern was the right fit for me. But I think it really just boiled down to there were a lot of places where I would be able to take intro to chemistry and take biology. And I think I tried to look more to outside of the classroom factors, knowing that I could learn about cells at a lot of different places. And I think what I really found about Northwestern from everyone I talked to as a prospective student and as prospective students yourselves, I would definitely recommend that you come to as many of these info sessions, join our live panels, and really just take advantage of all the different opportunities that we're providing to students right now to really be able to engage with current students, because that's what's going to help to really inform your decision making process. But for me, it was that every single person I talked to loved Northwestern, talked about how kind everyone was, what a supportive community it was. And I think something important to note is that you can be really happy in a lot of different places when you're at your best and everything is going perfectly. But where is going to, and what institution, what group of people are going to support you at your lows? Who is going to help pick you back up when you fail your first ever midterm, which 100% happened to me? And I think that I really had faith that at Northwestern, I would be really happy at my happiest, but also when things got hard, like they do. College is not a perfect 4 years of rainbows and sunshines. There are hard classes, and I've dropped classes, and there are going to be different situations that come up. Northwestern did such a phenomenal job of supporting me through those, whether that's our CAPS, our counseling and psychological services, my friends, just peers, professional acquaintances, everyone. And I think that that's something really important to think about, is where you're going to be also happy and where you're going to feel supported and loved during those valleys.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. That was great. And I think 100% all very valid and true. And as far as kind of our final sign off question, I always save this for the end because I think it's important and fun to highlight what we like best about this community. So we've spent now an hour kind of talking about Northwestern. But I just want to say on my end, my favorite part about Northwestern, and most students choose this, is that it's the people on campus. So when Elizabeth was talking about making sure you have people that surround you that can support you, I just found during my time as undergrad, I felt very supported. And I was filled with ambitious people all around me, but they weren't there to like push me down at all. They were there to lift me up with them, which is really, I think, the key part of a college experience. And then once I graduated, I'm joining this network of alum who are doing the same thing. And then I get to work at this university and be surrounded by staff and faculty that have the same kind of vibe and energy. So it's all around a very collaborative community, and what I really value about our community. But I want to let Elizabeth also answer this.
Yeah, so I definitely also have to agree that it's the people. And I think other than the really supportive and like loving nature of the people in the community at Northwestern, is that people at Northwestern know how to find a balance, and they know how to be really smart and do really exciting forward thinking research on the topics that they're interested in their academic disciplines. But they also know how to go to a comedy show on the weekend and laugh their butts off, and they know how to do satirical a cappella just because they can and just because they want to. And they also know how to go to football games and have a lot of fun. And I think that kind of all of the different components of Northwestern was something that was my favorite part too, is that Northwestern is no one thing. Northwestern has a slogan and is in our DNA. And it really is true. You have so many opportunities afforded to you here, and really exciting ways to take advantage of them.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. And on that note, we want to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thanks for dropping your questions. Hopefully we got to most of them. And we also just want to say, have a good evening, rest of your afternoon, morning, whatever it is. Have a great weekend, and make sure to subscribe to our channel, hit the bell notification to keep getting more info from us, and check out everything that we have to offer virtually while we wait to welcome you back on campus. And so with that, thank you, and go Cats.